that they're really necessarily looking for, but this is a really good player. It's a player that went and looked at the NBA draft, decided he wasn't quite there. So that gives you some context of where they're at in their career. It's there. The ability's there. He's shown it at Creighton that he can play at an extremely high level, but he's not quite NBA ready. Now, when I watch film of Kaluma, I see a guy that actually plays the K-State brand of up and down, attack the rim, get in that open court, pass to teammates, create for teammates. So perfectly, I imagine in the recruiting process, they just showed film and said, that's how you play. And he's like, yeah, that's how I play. He averaged 12 and 6 at Creighton. And guys, I know he's going to be surrounded by some great players at K-State, but could certainly lift those numbers at Kansas State because the way he plays will feed right into the way K-State wants to go get up and down.
So as far as his role on the team and kind of the way that you're seeing this rotation being built out as the offseason rolls on, obviously Kaluma's there, Naquan Tomlin returns. You would think David Gasson probably gets his way into the starting lineup. How do you sort of envision this rotation playing out now for Jerome Tang?
Well, he's not, they listed Keontae Johnson as a guard, and he's not a guard, but he is a 3. And I think his immediate presence will probably be felt in that 3 spot in the lineup, a spot that they've got some other guys that can play that and be, successful at that. But this guy's a little bit different. Now, he's not a high efficiency shooter all the time, 33% from 3. I think it's 43% from the field. But he brings some things to the table that you just can't teach someone to do. I mean, he gets after it quite a bit. So I think he's going to be a 25, 30-minute guy a game if he stays healthy. And to find that this late in the portal is pretty special. I think K-State still wants to find maybe another guard in the portal. They have 2 open scholarships, but that 11-man roster, they played with 9 basically last year on the roster that were playing, not the red shirts. So they can get by with this, and I think this is a great addition.
Yeah, it got me to thinking last week when headlines were out that this young man was going to come to K-State, and it was kind of like the number one player in the portals chosen K-State. Really, it was a big deal. It's really a big deal. So here's my question. We're in Kansas. We're here. It's almost like you can't see the forest for the trees because we're right here. But Jerome Tang is getting that national flavor as one of the coaches, an it coach, that guy that can coach. He's getting that reputation 1 year into his gig. Talk a little about Jerome Tang and where he is in terms of coaching with the guys. Just pick your best coaches in America. How close is he to jumping into that echelon?
Well, the fact that he's going head to head with John Calipari and other significant programs and already getting players just proves his connection he has with people, not with just recruits.
Oh yeah, okay.
I mean, a lot of coaches can go out and and honestly connect to a recruit as a sales pitch. Jerome Tang just connects to people, and you look at the brand of basketball they played last year. If I'm a player with any degree of athleticism, which is a foreign concept, but if I can get up and down the court and play that way, I want to play that way.
Right.
That's a fun brand.
Yes.
Let's get out and let's go put on a show brand of basketball. Let's win and put on a show, not just let's grind it out, look ugly, and get the W. And John Calipari's kind of under a lot of pressure right now that he's playing a dated offense. It's not a very fun brand of basketball to be in. And these guys who have been going there to get ready for the NBA are like, I don't see this getting me ready for the NBA all of a sudden. I see that getting me ready for the NBA, and we're really beginning to see it. In a business sense, Jerome Tang is an industry disruptor. He's come in with a different approach to a lot of things, a very open approach, and he treats your common fan to your big booster to your key recruit all the same. It's 100% authentic, and it works.
Yeah, following up on that a little bit, Fitz. I think it was remarkable, and the one thing that I took away from the entire recruitment process of Kaluma and then his committing to Kansas State is the fact that it wasn't just, Jerome Tang against somebody else. It was Jerome Tang versus Kentucky, Jerome Tang versus Calipari. And so I don't know, and it might be a combination of both. I don't know if it's more about Jerome Tang or more about John Calipari losing out, or maybe a combination of both, because you mentioned,
Yeah.
that Kentucky is under some pressure. Calipari's under the hot seat right now a little bit based on kind of the way that things have gone there lately. As this Wildcats squad moves forward, it's kind of a combination of a lot of things with NIL and the competitive nature of the program, the style of basketball they play. I would imagine that this commitment from Kaluma would just embolden the Wildcat staff to basically realize they can hang with anybody. They can hang with the Kentuckys of the world. There were a lot of other players that even considered K-State, ultimately didn't go to the Wildcats, like Max A. Smith and LJ Cryer and others, but at least they're in the mix for some of the top players in the country.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And for every coach who's said you can't recruit and be successful in Manhattan, Kansas, I present the evidence that has always been there, but nobody went out and did it. If you're the right person with the right system, you're going to have success in Manhattan. We've seen it in days gone by. It's happened in football. Certainly rich history in basketball. And finally, someone walked into Manhattan and said, this is a beautiful place. I love it here, and I'm going to go get some guys here, and done exactly what I've said for years. For every kid who doesn't want to be in a small town to play his basketball or football, like Manhattan, Kansas, there's a mother who wants their child in an environment like this where they'll be a little bit more safe and protected. The fans look out for everyone. You're a big deal in town, so you just can't get away with stuff, and that's really what Jerome Tang and company are doing, and it's good to see that it actually works.
Well, switching gears just a little bit, we're within about 75, 80 days of college football kicking off nationwide. What's that little tidbit I need to know about the Wildcats and the football program? What's going on with them? Where are they? What are they doing? How are they preparing? What's going on?
Well, it's summer workouts, so there's not much to report right now. But
okay,
I think one of the key factors about this team that I've even seen some national media completely whiff on, they returned their entire offensive line. Those guys came back en masse. If they were supposed to graduate, use their COVID year to come back, or your Cooper Beebe, and you could have gone to the NFL, he would have probably been like a third-round pick. But he decided to come back, and now they're projecting him as a first-round pick. So if that plays out, that's really wise. But they're also getting back Taylor Portier, who's been injured a lot, but now has two bionic knees. He should be able to jump higher, run faster than anyone else. He's a tremendous offensive lineman, and they've got a slew of young linemen who are going to ascend into those roles, maybe a little ahead of schedule, but now they get to even mature more. And, if you know basic football, if you're good on the offensive line, there's a pretty good chance you're going to have a good offense. And K-State, of course, has other weapons.
All right, Fitz. We've talked basketball. We've talked football. Let's get into conference realignment. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of everything. Looks like there are 4 schools. I know that you were tweeting about it the other day. 4 schools that really look to be zeroed in on by Brett Yormark: UConn, Arizona, Colorado, and San Diego State. Walk us through this process. Walk us through where you see the Big 12 right now, what the next steps are. Obviously waiting on whatever happens with the Pac-12, I suppose. But where are things right now at 9:15 on June 15th?
Well, you said the key. Everyone's waiting on the Pac-12 to do their business, including Colorado and Arizona, who are members of the Pac-12. What is our media deal? And we're now seeing the ramifications of having issues getting your media deal. Everyone's trying to project their athletic budgets, into the future for budgeting at, university campuses, and they can't do that. They're completely guessing. Well, we keep being told, and we've been told this so many times, it'll come by the end of the month. But I think what's different about this is everyone set a deadline. Brett Yormark set a deadline. Look, if you want to join the conference for, this cycle, you're going to have to join by the end of the month. Well, San Diego State, to leave the Mountain West, has to know by the end of the month. Colorado and Arizona want these numbers as soon as possible, and they're beginning to suspect there are no numbers to give. So they're really considering about moving, particularly Colorado. Colorado could move at any point. They've now scheduled another Board of Regents meeting for Monday, like the one they canceled a week or so ago. We'll see if that brings anything to the table. Now, there's been some questions about San Diego State and UConn. Well, San Diego State could get bumped off. If Arizona State or Utah steps forward in the last minutes and said, we totally miscalculated this, we got bamboozled, we really would be honored to be part of the Big 12. That might be hard to resist, but Brett Yormark also wants that San Diego market for so many reasons, including the fact that it's going to emerge as a bigger college market with no NFL team, and his Mexico play is perfect with San Diego State. UConn is hard to explain in a short amount of time, but he's had to sell that to the presidents and chancellors and ADs, and it looks like it's been effective. He sees long-term projections for UConn in football that, everyone wants to think at the moment. They stuck in the last few years. They kind of went to a bowl game. Well, they did go to a bowl game, but they were really, the record was kind of deceiving. They didn't beat anyone. But he knows what they were in the Big East when they, they were going to bowls. They're going to good bowls in the Big East, and he sees that coming back. What they want to end up with here is 4 teams West, 4 teams East, 4 teams from the old Big 8, and 4 teams in Texas. And in a strange way of a sprawling conference that gives them some geography that really works to their advantage.
So what you're saying is that this league is going to end up at 16 teams, because a lot of people think it's going to end up at 24. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but you're saying you see it at 16.
Yeah, the 16 play, first of all, 12 is a great number for a conference, but 16 actually works really well. And I'm going to have a video up. We're going to start doing a new video series at Go PowerCat on our YouTube channel and our site, explaining why 16 is actually an incredible number. It's a perfect number for this modern conference to schedule with, and I'll explain exactly why and how in that video. But the ACC lingering out there, some people think that granted rights will never be broken. Some people think they can vote to dissolve the league at the ACC and the granted rights won't mean anything. That's what gets the Big 10, SEC, and now the Big 12, ironically, the conference 2 years ago that was dead and gone, looks like the third survivor here. If the ACC breaks, they're going to add 4 more teams and get to 20. They'll get to 24 by adding 4 basketball teams, schools that don't have football programs, and that comes about by separating your media contracts between football and basketball. I think 24 is way too many, and I think you should probably just, you might as well have 2 conferences at that point. But so be it. It would make a really interesting basketball conference. And basketball is a little bit different than football. At 16 teams, you play everyone every year. You might play, 12 of them just once, but you can play everyone. 24, you can't even touch everyone in basketball in the same season. So it's cumbersome. I like 16 a lot. My preference would be everyone ends up at 16, including an ACC to survive. I think this would be best served. Well, first of all, I think it's best to have 5, but I don't see the Pac-12 surviving. Have 4 major conferences, not 3.
All right, one more thing before we let you go. As far as this realignment talk, I want to throw something out at you. Tell me what you think about this. If you think that we're crazy, Jacob and I talked about it yesterday. What if you had 16 teams, you had 4 different regions of 4 teams apiece, and then in football, you end up playing a semifinal and a final to determine your Big 12 champion? Is that something you think could be on the table?
No. You can't add more games, more levels of difficulty within your conference as we move into a playoff world. You need to play your games. You need to have a competitive conference. Let me just say this. You need to play 9 conference games if you're, a real league.
Right.
Because I think at 16, when the Big 12 formed with the 2 divisions, You played everyone in your division, and then you rotated your opponents in the other division, and you saw everyone home and away in a 6-year cycle. Well, if you have, say, 4 teams in the Big 12 area or Big 8 area, which you would have, you're going to play each other and then rotate everyone else in a 4-year cycle of playing everyone. So I think you're going to get a good balance of who you play every year. And now getting rid of divisions and just playing your top 2 teams. Is it perfect? No, because you might catch an easy schedule and sneak in there ahead of a better team. But I think it's the best way to do it.
It's so interesting. And of course, we're waiting for all the dominoes to fall. And it seems like every week, Fitz, we get a little bit closer and a little bit closer to having some kind of resolution in this crazy story that we're just left hanging on for so long. So I know that if anything, if you hear of anything or if anything else comes up, you definitely would want folks to go to your Twitter to find out what's going on, what you're hearing and all of that. And also, I'm sure at gopowercat.com.
Yeah, absolutely. I address this quite a bit on Twitter, and our YouTube channel is pretty heavy into conference realignment and expansion. But the bottom line is the Pac-12 is, delayed, kicked the can down the road so far that they've run out of road. The members are tired. They need the numbers. They're going to have to unveil what they have in the works. If they had a good contract, we would have heard about it. And if you listen to the experts, they don't know who they're talking to. Maybe that means it's Apple. But to get the right amount of money and the right amount of exposure on a national basis, I think is an impossible formula for the Pac-12. I've thought that for a while, but maybe they'll prove me completely wrong.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping our eyes on it for sure. And I'm sure that next week, same time, we'll probably have more to talk about with it. Fitz, hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining the show as always, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, boys.
All right, that's Tim Fitzgerald, publisher, gopowercat.com, giving you all the updates on K-State basketball, football, and conference realignment. It's a jam-packed show today, Paul. Just wrapped up Tim Fitzgerald. On the other side of the break, our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, joins us to talk best bets in the U.S. Open, Major League Baseball, and so much more. There's a lot to get to today on the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back on Sports Daily.
On the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
On the line is the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey sports betting insider, Chelsea Messenger. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. Also, be sure to check out the Daily Tip podcast for more of Chelsea Messenger analysis. Just search BetMGM wherever you find your podcasts.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily on a Thursday. Tommy Castor, Paul Savage in for Jacob Albracht, Jet Chambers producing. The IHOP hotline is 869-1240, as always, on Thursdays. Joined by our betting insider, Chelsea Messenger, on the show today. Chelsea, a lot to get to here in this segment. Of course, U.S. Open golf kicks off today, or I guess I should say tees off today, getting ready for that at LA Country Club. And I got to tell you, I want to kick things off by, I guess, apologizing to you because I placed a bet, Chelsea, on the U.S. Open that I know you're going to say was probably not the smart bet. I picked Brooks Koepka as the outright winner. I know you always talk about doing a top 5 or a top 10 or a top 20, but for whatever reason, I just felt like because he won the last major, the PGA Championship, I thought his value was pretty good at 12-1. I don't know. Was that wrong of me to try to throw some money on him as an outright winner?
I don't think it's wrong. I think it's risky just because outrights are really tough. And I think it's hard to win back-to-back majors. I think that's probably the biggest sabotage factor, is it not? It's just so difficult to win one major, let alone back-to-back. But I'll say this about Brooks Koepka. When he's dialed in, he's dialed in. This used to be the major king on the PGA Tour, and you can tell that the confidence is officially back. He's tweeting at Brandel Chambly. He's talking trash to other players on the PGA Tour. So I'm not going to talk you off it. It's just, you know how I feel about outrights. I think there are other bets that may be a little bit more conservative. Like for me, I think I'm going to do a top 20 bet on Victor Hovland. I think this week you need to be good with the irons. I've heard all about how the rough is really rough at LA Country Club. So I'm going to go with Victor Hovland, one of the better irons players on tour. And also he just won his putter, the one X factor that he's usually lacking. Putter's on fire coming into this tournament. So for me, it's Victor Hovland, top 20.
Let's talk a little bit, Chelsea, about the value and the way that you assess value when it comes to golf, and especially like the U.S. Open, because and Jacob and I were actually talking about this yesterday as we were giving our picks for the tournament. You know, when you're betting football or you're betting basically any other sport, you're trying to find, you know, maybe plus money wherever you can. In golf, it's basically all plus money, right? So like even the favorite to win in Scotty Scheffler is 6-1 to win. That's the favorite. So how do you assess value overall when you're looking at, basically every single player is getting plus money? How far down do you go down that list of players that, may end up being 200-1 or 300-1? Is that a big reason why you typically stay away from outright winners entirely?
I think just because it's really tough, because your handicap can be spot on for a player. But if one player has a better round or even beats them in a playoff, you win $0. So I think that you put like a little bit on outrights, but your main bet should be like the top 5s, top 20s, and top 10s for that reason. But I'll say this about long shots. Usually it's not a solid play at the majors because these courses are way more difficult and the spotlight is way brighter going into Sunday at a major. It's not the same thing as winning at like Hilton Head or whatever on a run-of-the-mill weekend on the PGA Tour. So I think that's why I kind of stay away from the long shots at the majors. So I think it's actually not a terrible play to go with the chalky plays when it comes to majors for that reason. Guys who are not going to completely wilt down the stretch if the spotlight's on, because we all know that golf is an extremely mental game.
Well, this is a golf course that hadn't had a major or a PGA tournament since 1948, is my understanding. And I guess on how the hamburger's fried up, does this make it tougher to set lines? Because this is a golf course which I find fascinating. I'm going to really enjoy watching this tournament on this particular golf course. They've got par threes that are over 300 yards, Tommy, and they've got some par threes that are under 100 yards. So it's a fascinating golf course. But how hard does it get to set lines with some of these guys when you're not really familiar with this golf course and how they're setting it up?
Well, I think the bottom line is most golfers are going to be in the same situation. So it's an even playing field. Although there are some golfers there that do know the course. Maybe it's the course before they made the adjustments, because I know a lot of people are on Patrick Cantlay this weekend because Patrick Cantlay is a California guy, played at UCLA. He's played on this course before. And also Max Homa. He's somebody who has proven that he can win in the state of California and actually has the course record at this very course. Although, like I said, it was pre-majoring of this course. So they definitely have made the obstacles a lot tougher. But yeah, it's built into the number. A lot of these guys don't have a ton of familiarity here.
Okay, so one more U.S. Open question for you that is kind of, I don't know. I put some money on it I think I have him as a top 20, I want to say, and that's Nick Taylor. Of course, he had that dramatic eagle putt for the win last week at the RBC Canadian Open. I'm not really sure how things typically carry over from, one tournament going into a major, the winner of the last tournament going in to a particular major. But I just figured because of all of the emotion, surrounding that eagle putt for the win and all of that, I thought he might be able to follow it up with a pretty solid U.S. Open. Are there any other long shots or any other players that, outside of the chalk, outside of Scheffler and Rahm and Koepka, that you're looking at potentially having a really good week?
Yeah, no. Like I said, I think majors are not the time to play long shots. I'll say Justin Rose has been playing pretty well lately. I'm not going to put any money on him to win outright. And that's the thing. Like, if you're playing top 30s, top 40s, and you can still get plus money on somebody who's relatively unknown, I'm fine with that. I just think winning is a different scenario. And here's the thing about like some of the chalk. Scotty Scheffler was talking about how his putting was like up in the air and how he might be trying some new things. And doesn't that sound like somebody who has not been playing well? This guy has been top 10 in 5 straight. Scotty Scheffler is unreal. The consistency that he brings to the table each and every week on the PGA Tour is crazy to me. So I would not talk you off. Scotty Scheffler minus 140 to finish in the top 10. This guy is the picture of consistency. It feels like he's the Nikola Jokic of the PGA Tour. Yeah, top 5 in 4 straight and top 11 in 6 straight. My goodness. If there's ever a safe bet, it feels like Scotty Scheffler.
Well, before we get off this this topic real quick, if you don't mind, give me that one that one bet I'm looking for, that one prop. Give me a prop that, man, maybe I can make some money on. Just give me the one prop you like.
Yeah, it's going to be that Scotty Scheffler one. I feel like that is the safest play. Like I said, I'm on Victor Hovland as well. I think he's a pretty solid play for top 20. But other than that, like, I don't have a ton writing on the U.S. Open. I think that it's not a terrible play to wait till after the first day. Because here's the thing about golf. You can still get pretty good prices on outrights even after the first day. So it feels like a more wait-and-see approach to where, you know, if somebody's blowing up, you don't have all your money riding on him, and you get a better thermostat on what's going on with the golfer.
All right, Chelsea, let's shift gears here a little bit and talk Major League Baseball. Definitely some intriguing matchups as we get into the games today and then into this weekend. I know, of course, Shohei Ohtani and the Angels on the road taking on their division foes, the Rangers. Nate Eovaldi on the bump for the Rangers on this game tonight. What are you looking at in the world of Major League Baseball as we get into this weekend?
I'll be on the Twins today in the first 5, the -0.5, which means they need to be ahead. If they are tied, you do not win. But listen, the Tigers have been slumping lately. 1-9 over their past 10. The Twins are great in this situation. 26-14 as a favorite, and winners of their last 4 or 5. Plus, they have their best pitcher on the mound, arguably speaking. Sonny Gray throwing today 4-1 with a 2.25 ERA, and he's even better at home with a 1.71 ERA. Matt Boyd comes in with a 3-5 record and a 5.55 ERA. So I'm willing to fade the Tigers in this spot. That's my favorite play of the day.
Do we have any kind of play with the Rays and the Athletics? Fascinating story going on in Oakland. They're moving to L.A. Fans show up one day, don't show up the next day. Is there any kind of play there that you like with those two teams?
Yeah, I think the A's are a team you stay far, far away from because
Okay.
right now they're red hot. I'm not willing to fade them at this point. At one point, they were the worst team in baseball.
Right.
They've found some confidence. And I'll say today they at least have a good starter going in Paul Blackburn, which if you follow baseball, he was supposed to be one of the pitchers that were on the trading block last year. He was an all-star. So if there's ever a chance for the A's to get a win here against the best team in baseball, that's not due to some like voodoo magic, which is what I'm, calling the rest of their wins, because on paper, they're still not a good team.
Right.
You've got to remember, it's a 162-game season. Just because they won 7 games does not mean that they're going to win the World Series. It's been a great story, but be careful if you're banking on all the momentum of the Oakland A's. Eventually, they're probably going to turn back into a pumpkin.
One more from me in baseball, Chelsea, before we let you go. What's your take on the Arizona Diamondbacks? They've got the second best record in the National League. I've watched them several different times, and to me, they don't look like a fluke. They look like an incredibly complete team. Are you seeing the same thing? And if so, is there a good way to attack betting them?
Yeah, they are a good team, led by Corbin Carroll, who is their rookie, who is now the odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Year because he has the best OPS, or maybe it's the second best OPS, but still one of the best OPSs in all of baseball. And that is including the big dogs, not just the rookies. So Arizona is one of those teams that's really made the most of the new rule changes. I think that's part of their success. They steal a lot of bases. They're a really fast team. And also, it's a team that's been rebuilding for quite some time. So eventually, these prospects that they got via trades are starting to get to the big leagues, and we're seeing the potential. So a team that maybe you get some good value on day in and day out, just in the betting world, because a lot of people still don't believe in them.
Well, it's definitely interesting, and they were a team that at the beginning of the season, I didn't particularly see being where they are right now. I thought they would be improved. I wasn't sure that they would be. In fact, I didn't think at all that they would be leading the National League West. But here we are. They're 41-27 with the second best record in the National League. And like you said, led by Corbin Carroll, who is really, really fun to watch. Chelsea, thanks for your time as always. I know that as we get into next week, we're going to be talking more Major League Baseball and maybe even starting to look ahead into what we've got in the fall? I don't know. I mean, it seems like we're kind of in that middle ground where we're done with the NBA and the NHL. We're waiting for NFL and college football. We're kind of caught in the middle. So I'm sure that we'll have some more bets to talk about. But until then, again, as always, thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem. I just saw a tweet. Somebody asked Joe Burrow about Taylor Swift. That's what season we're in. It's the off season, baby.
You gotta love it.
Yeah.
It makes it challenging in our role to try to find good, compelling content to talk about. But we'll make it happen. And of course, we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me.
All right. That was Chelsea Messenger. She is the host of the Daily Tip and Odyssey Sports Betting Insider. Insider calls are presented by BetMGM. Go check out all of the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Paul, real quick, before we get into hour number 2, we got a lot going on in hour number 2, by the way. I want to talk a little bit about the disaster dumpster fire that are the Kansas City Royals.
Oh, for
if you thought it couldn't get any worse, them being 31 or 32 games under 500, it got worse yesterday. We'll tell you about that on the other side of the break. It's Sports Daily, Castor and Savage on a Thursday on KFH.
Dude, you gotta hear this.
Go ahead. I think I want to hear this. Sports Daily is on KFH.
Welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage. Chad Chambers producing the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Paul, before we wrap up hour number one, I'm not sure that it could get any worse for the Kansas City Royals. Jacob and I have talked about them a couple of different times this week, as they passed the Oakland Athletics as officially the worst team in baseball record-wise. They're 32 games under 500. There's been speculation that the Royals could potentially trade Salvador Perez, which is just crazy that we're having that conversation. But if you thought that things couldn't get any worse, they did yesterday with the announcement that first baseman Vinny Pasquantino will have season-ending shoulder surgery, and Salvador Perez, who of course has been rumored for trade for trade potential this season, was hit by a pitch in the game last night, left the game with a contusion on his hand. He's considered day-to-day, not sure the severity of that injury. But man, Paul, I think that the term dumpster fire is probably a pretty good one to use when describing the Kansas City Royals.
And what a shame, because, and this is just anecdotal observation on my part, and I don't know if you would have noticed the same thing, but I have noticed a lack of, Kansas City Royal t-shirts, baseball caps, flyers on a window or a decal on a window or something like that of a car. There seems to be sort of a disinterest. This show really hadn't taken that much interest in the Royals. I mean, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
And let me tell you, every time there's a loss, everybody gets, players come to the podium and have to speak to press, and the managers of all teams have to come. If you're the manager of the Kansas City Royals, how many ways can you say we lost and still make it sound positive? Because you're going to run out of stuff to say that would be positive, because I don't see anything right now. And of course, I guess there's always hope. The A's got on a streak and pulled themselves right out of the worst team in baseball, and allowed the Kansas City Royals to replace them. But I don't know what to tell you other than the fact it's hard to watch. And let me tell you, I'm trying to watch it. I love baseball on television now with the pitch clock. I'm telling you right now, I'm a big fan, and it brings a whole new activity to watching baseball on TV that wasn't there before. So it's a big winner in my books. And I'm looking for the reason to watch the Royals. Give me the reason, Royals.
There's none.
There's
none.
Well, if you
Bobby Witt Jr., maybe Bobby Witt Jr.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. But I don't know that I want to sit through the rest of it to get to that part.
Right. This was back when, I think in the 90s, it was whenever Buddy Bell was the manager of the Royals for that stretch of years where they were really, really bad. I mean, they've been really bad a lot of years, but it was during his tenure as the manager back in the day. Josh Vernier, who's an insider for the Kansas City Royals up in Kansas City, had a tweet yesterday that I retweeted because I thought it was incredibly poetic. He said, so back when Buddy Bell was the manager, one of his quotes was, "I never say it can't get worse." The very next year with Buddy Bell, the Royals started a franchise worst 19-49. Today, or I guess yesterday, Vinny Pasquantino was lost for the year. Salvi left with injury, and a team led by Buddy's son, David Bell, in Cincinnati, swept the Royals, handing them a 9th straight loss and a new franchise worst at 18-50. The Royals have had years and years and years, Paul, of futility outside of a couple of years where they've won championships and contended. But by and large, they've been really bad for a lot of years. So it tells you something that this right now, where we are living in the franchise worst that the Royals have had.
Right.
That tells you something.
Right.
That takes a lot of, a lot of really bad baseball, I guess, to get to a franchise that's been really bad a lot to make it the worst.
Well, I think you're right. And, and the problem is, do you see hope on the horizon? I mean,
no,
because I'm not sure I see it. And I think you're exactly right. The answer is obviously no, because what's coming up would have already probably gotten here at this point of the season to try to
they
write
have
something.
no top 100. They have no top 100 prospects.
So
they've got nobody in their farm system.
So, it takes kind of the hope away. It makes you just think to yourself, something's got to happen. Something's got to be done. You notice how it's gone quiet on that new stadium in the downtown. Have you noticed that when you're this bad?
There's no way they're going to be able to pass a vote to be able to get a brand new stadium.
Yeah, well, and playing this way is the same way. By the way, just a statistical note: 25% of the games that the Royals are playing in are wins. 1 out of every 4 is a win. There was a day where you'd go, gosh, somebody's losing 2 out of 3. The world is, collapsing. Well, I think right now I'd take 2 out of 3. I'd settle for 2 out of 3 right now. That's the way I feel about it, Tommy.
They have not won a series in a month. It's been a month since they've won a series. They've played 68 games. They've won 18 of them. They're on pace to shatter. I'm not even talking about beat, but shatter the all-time loss record in Major League Baseball. On pace for that. And I don't really see a glimmer of hope as to why they wouldn't do that. So I guess, what we thought was bad has gotten worse, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that Salvador Perez is healthy and will be okay, because if they are wanting to potentially trade him, that will really diminish his trade value, and teams aren't going to want him more than likely if he's injured. So we'll keep our eyes on that for sure. But sad news, I guess, and disappointing, discouraging news if you are a Royals fan. That's going to wrap up hour number 1 here on Sports Daily. Coming up in hour number 2, we have a Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction on the other side. And then Jay Delling calls in to give us an update on day number 1 of the Wichita Open out at Crestview Country Club. It's a jam-packed Thursday. Tommy Castor, Paul Savage, Jad Chambers producing it. Sports Daily on KFH.
Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 is now underway on Sports Daily right here on KFH. I'm Tommy Castor alongside Paul Savage, Jad Chambers, as always, producing the show on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Thanks for those of you who are listening on KFH. Thanks to those of you watching on our video stream. You can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. Leave your comments, and they'll show up right up on the screen, and we'll get to them as the show rolls on. A busy hour number 2 here on the program. Coming up in the next segment, Jay Delling will call in and talk a little bit about the Wichita Open, which kicks off today at Crestview Country Club. It's always a lot of fun. One of the best events in Wichita every single year. Today is day number 1 of the Wichita Open, so we will talk with Jay coming up in the next segment. But first, Paul, we have another Wichita Sports Hall of Fame induction, so I'm going to turn things over to you to get things started.
Well, thank you, Tommy. I appreciate that. And we have real royalty. Royalty is what I'm saying, is in the form of Kim Carter, who is perhaps one of the top 3 women athletes to ever come out of the city of Wichita. And I when I say top 3 women, Tommy, I'm going to say 3 names to you: Kim Carter, Corrine Jacks, and Lynette Woodard. Those are probably the 3 queens, or kings, I might say as well, of Wichita sports on the women's side, because those were all 3 wonderful. By the way, for those that don't know who Corrine Jacks is, she was an 8-time AAU All-American in the 40s and 50s, just prior to AAU basketball was the basketball that later became college women's basketball. 8-time All-American at with the Boeing Bombers. But anyway, I'm so glad to have Kim Carter on today, because she's one of the great ones. And just to say a little about her is that, this is a lady that won state championships at the high jump, setting national records that held for years and years and years. She was also a person who won a state championship in basketball and was also an Olympian. She was in the Olympics for the United States. And it's great to have Kim Carter on the show today to be inducted into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. I know, Kim, you're facing a little bit of a battle with your voice. It's okay. We'll get through this, because we're bound and determined to make you a Wichita Sports Hall of Famer today. And we're going to do it one way or the other, Kim. So how are you, Kim? How's the voice coming?
Okay. My voice is horrible. It's I ended up losing my voice. I am in New York City. We had the fires, and we've had a lot of. I'm an athletic director at a school, so we've had a lot of events, and we had a major one yesterday. And I apologize. I apologize to your listeners, because I generally don't sound like this. I don't.
Well,
it's okay. Not an issue at all, Kim.
Kim, I want to take
you guys thinking of me.
Well, we're so glad to have you on. Whether you're whatever you sound like, you're just one of the greatest athletes of all time in Wichita. And we're so glad to have you on. I want to go back to that day. The story goes, and here's how the story goes. There was a fateful day. You walked into the gymnasium at East High School, and some of the girls were trying to get you to go out for women's basketball, and you'd never played basketball. But the story goes that you jumped up and grabbed the rim. Is that a true story?
Yeah, somewhat true. I actually grabbed it at Wichita State. A friend of mine and I were heading to the track one summer. My, 8th, 9th grade year. And as we walked through a friend of mine said, "Can you grab the rim?" I said, "Of course I can grab the rim." So I stood underneath the basket. I grabbed the rim easily. And unbeknownst to me, on the other end of the court were some athletes that played at Wichita State, but they had friends at Wichita East. And they ran over to me and were like, "Oh my God, do that again." And I just looked at them. I was like, "Oh, okay." And I did it again with ease. And they asked me where I was going to go to school. I said, "I'm going to Wichita East High School." And just said bye. And we went outside and we did a little workout. So what happened was that, you're right, I did not play basketball. I had no intention of playing basketball. I spent my entire life having people tell me, "Oh, I'm sure you're going to be really good." And I thought, well, what if I'm not good? I don't know how to play. So I was at East High actually trying out for the cheerleading squad. And, the cheerleading sponsor said, "I'd like to introduce you to somebody." And I said, "Okay." And over walked large man, not bigger, not taller than me, but a little larger. And she said, "I'm introducing you to Don Bowen. He's our girls basketball coach." I said, "Well, very nice to meet you, but I don't play basketball." And so I proceeded to make the volleyball squad and the cheerleading squad with no intention of playing basketball, but he was a kind man. The girls on the team were great and very encouraging. So, long story short, I ended up going out for basketball.
Go ahead, Tommy.
Kim, I want to jump. I want to jump ahead real quick and ask you about your experience in the Barcelona Olympics in '92. I can imagine just the overall thrill and honor of being an Olympian on the U.S. Olympic team. Talk a little bit about what your experience was in that and some of the memories that you have from that time back in 1992.
Yeah. The feeling that you have is just overwhelming when you make an Olympic team. It's unlike any other. I put it up there with giving birth to my twin boy and girl. But and I remember saying to my coach, well, one, it was a little precarious because as people remember, I was actually in fourth place going into the last event. And I overheard the young lady who was ahead of me saying her coach told her to just hang on to me for the last event of the 800 meters and, just go out with her, hold on to her. And I thought to myself, well, you can hold on to me, but you're going to have a heck of a ride. And I ended up breaking my own American record in 800 in that race. And we were friends after that, but I looked back and the young lady who tried to hold on to me, who ended up 7 seconds behind me, was in one of those Kevlar blankets that they use after the marathon. And she was struggling and walking, and the trainers were with her. So I saw she did have a very interesting ride. But but what was happening in Barcelona, it was in New Orleans. What was happening is that they were trying to tell people so quickly afterward that they had made the team and giving me the little American flags to then go take your victory lap. They tried to give me a flag and I refused it. And I just ended up, finishing 800. Wasn't quite certain whether or not I had done what I needed to do to catapult myself into third place. So by the time I got 3/4 around the track, I saw my coach in the stands, and I looked up at her like, did I, with my hands kind of up in a question, and she said yes. And she turned to her friend, she said she doesn't know, and I just burst into tears. I wanted to get the confirmation from her. And so anytime you have an opportunity to represent your country, it's just a very special feeling. The Barcelona games were amazing. It's an amazing city. But for me, I ended up spending a lot of time in France, which neighbors Spain, because the heptathlon goes early in the games. I decided not to participate in the opening ceremonies because it's just such a long, long day that I really wanted to have myself ready for the competition. So one of the things that I sacrificed was being able to go to the opening ceremonies. But just you're with some of the best around the world. You're trying to do your best. It kind of just came full circle from what I always tried to do in high school as well. Just compete. And I did pretty well. I was 11th overall.
Wow. And in the Olympics, I've interviewed people that have participated in Olympics over the years, Tommy and Kim. And one of the things that they say, and Kim, I'll ask you if this happened to you, is the first time you put on your jersey that says USA and you look at yourself in the mirror, you do a double check and you just a double take of yourself, and you look and you think, I've got this shirt on me right now, this jersey, and it says USA. Did you have that experience too?
I did have that experience. I was lucky enough to make the national team the year before that we went to Tokyo, Japan in 1991. So I did have that feeling there. And I remember saying to my coach, people don't understand. You almost pay to make a team. You're so fortunate to be able to use your own skills, but it just means that much to you that it's like, you guys didn't have to pay me. I would have paid you to come to make a trip.
Well, I know your voice is holding pretty good, but I'm going to get you out of here with talking about one more thing that I think is a fascinating thing about your career, particularly right here in Wichita. And Tommy, I want you to know that Kim was for years the national record holder for the high jump in women's high school track, which is really something. And that was at a height of 6'2.25". Amazing. And what
relay?
Yeah. And what's amazing is in the state track meet, Tommy, for her senior year, everybody gets to pick, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but most people get to pick where do they want to start. What height do you want to start when it comes to your first jump for the competition? And interestingly enough, it's one of those things where at the high school level with Kim, the second place finisher for the high jump had a jump of 4'10". That's second place in the state meet. Kim's opening jump was 5'4". That was her opening jump. Talk a little about sitting there watching all these girls, because basically what happens is you watch the whole competition unfold in front of your very eyes, and then you come in and jump. Talk a little about that day you won won the state championship with waiting for everybody to finish up before you even started.
Well, I won 3 state championships in a row. That was not my senior year. My senior year, there was a very good young lady who also ran the 400, so we competed against each other. I cannot remember the school that she went to. But I did not have a chance to reflect on that until I was inducted into the Kansas State Hall of Fame. I don't spend a lot of time reflecting on my career, but going into that event, I had to think to myself, my goodness, I never lost a high school track meet in the 3 years of high school. And it was like that when I first started. I was coming in at the same heights other people were, because that's just what you did. But then you learned, you only have so many jumps, and if you're jumping higher, you don't want to waste them on lower heights. So I did, not just at state meets, but at other competitions too. I would cheer for the other athletes because I wanted somebody to still be in by the time I came in. But I got very fortunate. My senior year, there was a young lady from the state of Washington who was also jumping very well. So even if she wasn't there and we never actually competed against each other while we were in high school, I kind of competed against her a little bit, even if the competition that was at the meet was not jumping as high as I was. But I remember my senior year, I actually had much like this, I had a serious sinus infection. I'd taken a bunch of cold medicine. I was struggling, but somehow managed to pull it out.
Well, your career has been spectacular, and it's just amazing to have you on the air with Tommy and I. And we're both Tommy, I speak for you, I know, when I say it's a privilege to have you on our show and allow us to induct you into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. And want you to get feeling better, that's for sure. But it's that time of the show where we're going to induct you into the Hall of Fame. And first of all, congratulations, because man, oh man, you deserve this. And I'm so proud of you and what you've meant to Wichita sports. You're a treasure in this city. And I want you to know that. And I know everybody that's listening to our voice or will listen to this on the podcast will also think the same thing. So at this time, Kim Carter, you have been officially nominated and elected into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. And at this point, you are inducted and now have the same rights and privileges pertaining to such an induction into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Kim Carter. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys, so much. I'm going to call back another time when my voice has cleared up to thank you all properly. But I just want the city of Wichita to know you stayed in my heart. I still have good friends there. And I wouldn't have grown up in another spot. You guys were great to me. I love the city. And just thank you all so much. I'm so honored.
Well, we are too. Tommy, I'm just so proud of Kim Carter. And thank you, Kim, so much for coming on. And, man, you're a competitor. Man, you fought through that voice problem. Man, but that's what the great ones do, Tommy. Isn't that what the great ones do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I just echo. Definitely. Echoing Paul, hope you feel better, get that voice back. We'd love to have you back on anytime. And,
absolutely.
And once again, congratulations and thanks so much for the time, Kim.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. That's Kim Carter. And congratulations to her as the newest inductee in the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. It's a jam-packed show, as always, here on Sports Daily. Coming up on the other side of the break, Jay Delling is going to call in talking about the Wichita Open. We're full of interviews on the show today. So we're going to do that, talk about day number 1 of the Wichita Open out at Crestview Country Club. That's on the way. On the other side, Tommy Castor, Paul Savage, Jad Chambers producing at Sports Daily on KFH.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
Our thanks to Kim Carter and congratulations to her on the induction for the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame. If you missed that interview or any of our interviews in hour number one with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com or Chelsea Messenger, our Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, you can always go online to KFHradio.com or on the free Odyssey app and be able to hear those back, listen to the entire interview right there. Again, that's at kfhradio.com or on the free Odyssey app. Paul, Odyssey and KUYN bring you Concerts in the Park, sponsored by IHOP. It's free live music Friday from 8 to 10 p.m. in Andover Central Park at the Capitol Federal Amphitheater, 1607 East Central Avenue in Andover. This Friday, the Lou Brown Band. You can bring your lawn chairs, your blankets, extra cash for the food trucks. No coolers are allowed. That's going to be tomorrow night, the Lou Brown Band at the Capitol Federal Amphitheater. Don't know how much time, if any, you've spent out there at the Capitol Federal Amphitheater, Paul. I live right down the road from the amphitheater in Andover. It's a cool venue, and that Free Music Friday, the Concerts in the Park, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I've never been to it, but I look forward to it. As a matter of fact, our Shakespeare in the Park, I believe it's next week. We also have a production that we will do in the park. Much to Do About Nothing will play in the amphitheater there at Andale. So yeah, I'll be in it. I'll actually perform in it here in the next week or so.
All right.
Yeah.
And I've been there. I really enjoy that particular park space that they've got there. I went to I think it was the second ever Taco Fest because the first one they'd held in Union Station here in Wichita, and they didn't have nearly enough room, and it was perfect that next year when they held it in Andover, and that's happening this year. So
wow, a lot going on
Very
at the
cool. That's
amphitheater in Andale or Andover. I mean, wow.
Andover. It's such a fun venue, such a cool place. We take our son there to the park, which is right next to the amphitheater. Quite a bit. Go out there. It's brand new. I think within the last year or two that park area is. And I'm super grateful, by the way, that, and I know Jacob and I discussed it the other day, that it wasn't damaged in the Andover tornado last year, because it's such a cool place for families and people to hang out down there. So sounds like a lot going on there at the amphitheater starting tomorrow night, the Free Music Friday, Concerts in the Park. And then, a lot of other things going on down there.
Just real quick, this Sunday is when we perform now. You don't have a reason not to, walk a half a block down to the theater and come to Much Ado About Nothing and see me as Antonio, for guys' sakes. Okay, there's no reason. This Sunday, Tommy Castor is going to be at that performance. I don't know what he's going to do with his kid. Bring your kids. What the heck?
I think, Paul, if I do that, would there be anything stopping me from bringing tomatoes to throw on the stage?
Not a thing, not a single thing. And you'll be sitting close enough to the stage. I'm sure you'll get a couple of hits.
Well, I might have to do that. I think that would be a fun way to enjoy a little bit of Shakespeare, to throw some tomatoes up on the stage.
Go.
No, I'd never do that. I'm more respectful of the theater than that. So,
well, anyway,
Jay, do we have Jay Delling on the line? I'm not sure if we've got him ready to go.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So Jay Delling, Wichita Open, we've got him scheduled. We'll track him down to have him join the show here in just a little bit to talk about day number 1 of the Wichita Open. Paul, speaking of the Wichita Open, how locked in do you get to that tournament? Do you go out and enjoy the festivities at all? Have you been there before?
Oh gosh,
your thoughts on what that tournament brings to Wichita?
Let me tell you, I used to have a tradition. I probably stopped about 10 or 15 years ago, but there was a time probably for the first 10, 15 tournaments that they would have, I'd make a point of going on Sunday, and I always bring an old golf club with me. I'd always go to like a thrift store, and I'd find a really nice, high quality driver. Usually I'd try to get a number 1 driver. And then I would take it out with a pen and have the winner, after he won the tournament, sign my driver. Somewhere in my storage area, I probably got 10, 15 drivers with the champions from the Wichita Open in my garage. I don't know where they are. I haven't seen them for a long time. But yeah, it's always a lot of fun, because who's going to be the next star? I mean, we've seen some of these guys go on to do some really great things on the tour, and it's been a lot of fun. So to see who's going to be the next big star. And of course, Wichita for itself. I mean, even if you look at the U.S. Open, we got Sam Stevens, who you and I interviewed. I believe it was Friday. Last Friday, we interviewed him, and he's playing in the U.S. Open. What a great history Wichita has. And let me tell you, this Wichita Open has become a great part of the history of Wichita golf. It's really cool, and it's a great place to go. I mean, Crestview is an easy walk. It's very conducive to watching golf, and I enjoy it a lot, Tommy.
Let's get you a quick update on the U.S. Open, by the way,
Oh,
which
please.
just teed off a little bit ago. Jacob Solomon is tied for the lead with Omar Morales and also Dylan Wu at 2 under par. A couple of other notable golfers that are under par right now include Francisco Molinari at 1 under, Kevin Streelman at 1 under, Ricky Fowler is also 1 under. A lot of golfers
Right.
still yet to tee off because obviously it's on the West Coast. So it's 10:30 right now.
Right.
The 8:30 out on the West Coast. So things are just kind of getting underway there for day number 1 of the U.S. Open. Looks like we do have Jay Delling here on the line to talk Wichita Open golf with us. Jay, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, guys. How's it going?
It's going great. You guys got really, really good weather, it looks like, to kick off day number 1 of the Wichita Open out at Crestview Country Club. How are things going out there? I know there's been a lot of preparation and getting everything ready to go for the huge event out at Crestview. How do things look right now?
Things are great. I heard you were in charge of the weather this year, so thank you for a great start on Thursday. We never like to get behind on a Thursday, so no, the weather is just perfect. The wind is down. The sun is shining. First balls were in the air at 6:55 this morning. We are off and running. The golf course looks amazing. People are already out on the course, heading down to number 17, which I may follow them at some point today.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to get into the nuts and bolts of like the leaderboard and who some of the notable players and all of that we've got in the field this weekend. But before we get into that, I want to ask you first off, I know that there's a brand new tournament director, Dusty Buell. I've known Dusty for years. Great guy. And he's really doing some things, it looks like, to push the envelope and move things forward in this event that has been a lot of fun for a number of years under Roy Turner. But I know that there are some new elements to the Open, the fan zone, and then some upgraded amenities on 17. Walk everybody through, if they go out to the Open this weekend, some of the new things they can expect.
Yeah, the fan zone is new, so I encourage everybody that walks through the Welcome Center. All they have to do is keep walking. There's just a lot of new things for the fans this year. It's just not about golf. It's about fun. It's about getting people involved in our tournament. And by the way, there's golf going on, kind of a thing. So
right,
it really is a social event out here, and we encourage people to come out. And whether we get a lot of people out here that aren't really golfers, but they like to come out here. The socialization is good. Obviously 17 speaks for itself, but you've got 80 acres out here at your beck and call, and you can literally go almost anywhere you want. You can follow groups you don't know about. I encourage everybody to come in and get a tee sheet, which we have in the welcome centers. You come in, if you've got somebody specific that you want to follow, we've got some local flavor this year that we're excited about. So a lot of fun things going on.
Well, give our listeners something to sort of look at and maybe give a comparison to. What's it going to take, in your opinion, the way the course is playing? Because you've seen the course, you've probably talked to some of the guys who have played some practice rounds and that kind of thing. What's the score going to take to make the cut? And I'm going to put a little pressure on you. What's it going to take to win the tournament?
Paul, typically it takes about 18 to 20 under to win in Wichita. And that's what I said last year. But some guy named Norman Song shows up and shoots 26 under to break all kinds of scoring records. He actually double bogeyed the last hole. He was at 28 under, finished at 26 under, still won the tournament by 5 shots. I am totally convinced that if you were on the 18th tee, the 72nd hole, with a 7-shot lead, I am confident you would bring it home.
Well, geez, thank you for that one.
Yeah. That's a lot of optimism, Jay. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but I get what you're saying. As far as the field is concerned, Jay, you mentioned the defending champion Norman Song, who won last year, is back in the field this year. It's always it's so much fun for me over the years that I've been out at the tournament and followed along to then follow some of these guys as they make it on the PGA Tour. And I can think of a handful of names, a lot of guys that have been in the field before. Colin Morikawa's been in the field, and Bubba Watson's been in the field. And I know I'm missing a lot of other players, but there have been really, really notable PGA Tour professionals that have played in the Wichita Open. So are there some other notable names in the field this year, or other guys that you look at and you think, keep your eyes on that guy because he might end up making a run in the PGA?
Right. So just FYI, Norman Chong is out on the golf course right now. He's tied for fifth.
Okay.
He's at 4 under. So he's making a charge on Thursday. This tour is so interesting because back in 1990, we had no idea who Tom Lehman was. But he wins our event and ultimately becomes number one in the world for, about a cup of coffee. It was a short period of time, but he did. Players like David Duval, right? David Toms, Jason Duffner, all these players have won major championships on the PGA Tour. We didn't really know who they were when they were in Wichita. So it's kind of hard to pick. Although here's my take now. College golf has brought an element to this tour that we've never seen before. If you remember about 3 years ago, speaking of Colin Morikawa, which between his freshman and sophomore year back in 2016 competed here in Wichita and actually lost in a 3-way playoff to win the championship. Ollie Schneiderjans won that year. So, here's a 19-year-old kid on arguably the second best tour in the world, right? I mean, just a 19-year-old kid. When him and Matthew Wolff and Victor Hovland came out on tour 3 years ago, they went right from college to actually the PGA Tour and won within that first season. So these players that are coming out of college, we have 7 of the top 10 players in college golf this last year that are in the field this week. And so these are guys that I'm watching. There's a player named Adrian Dumont Deschartres who 2 weeks ago was playing college golf. His pro debut was at the BMW on the Korn Ferry Tour last week. He not only entered the tournament, he won it.
Oh.
It's unheard of, right? These players coming to college, they are absolutely fearless. There's not a pin that they don't go after. They just have this green light mentality where, if you talk to the veterans on the PGA Tour, they'll tell you, okay, certain pins you don't want to go for the middle of the green. These kids are fearless. They're going for every pin, and it's really a lot of fun to watch.
I've got a question about the golf course again, if you don't mind. What has Crestview done to sort of trick this thing up, make it more difficult? Do they do anything in particular that you know of to make this a more challenging course for some of these guys? Because these guys are shooting the heck out of these scores. And what does the course do on a normal basis to make it more difficult?
Well, what we did, it's been several years ago. When you want to make a golf course a little bit harder, you go take some of the par 5s and turn them into par 4s. And so here at Crestview for the members, it's a par 72. But number 6 and number 18, which are usually par 5s, we turn them into par 4s during Wichita Open Week. And so, again, instead of having a par 72, we have a par 70. And these holes are really easy as par 5s, but they're really hard as par 4s. There's not much more that we can do to make the golf course harder. Yeah, we could grow some rough, but you know what? Here on the Korn Ferry Tour, we don't want to put any man-made obstacles in their way. We want them to score. We want them to have that confidence, so that when they get on the PGA Tour, again, they maintain that no fear mentality.
Well, I can tell you, Crestview is my course, and typically my score goes up, quite a bit, when the month of May and June rolls around and that rough gets a little bit longer and the greens get a little bit faster. Of course, I'm nowhere near as good as these guys who are on the Korn Ferry Tour. Jay, I could talk to you for hours about this tournament and the Korn Ferry Tour and golf in general. There's one other question that I have for you, and I know that I'll have you back on tomorrow to give you an update, have you give an update on the Friday rounds and all of that. But one of the things that has always really piqued my attention with the Korn Ferry Tour in general is, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong in the terminology of it, I think it's called the battlefield promotion. Is that what it's called? Where a player wins multiple times on the Korn Ferry Tour and they're immediately promoted back up to the PGA. They don't have to wait around. They don't have to try to, qualify or whatever. They literally win a certain number of events and then they automatically get to go to the PGA Tour. I would imagine that probably plays into that mentality that you were just talking about with the kids being fearless and going after all these pins and trying to score because they want to make it to the PGA Tour as quickly as possible. That's always been one of the most fascinating things that I look at on the Korn Ferry.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically when you win an event here on the Korn Ferry Tour, you are exempt for the rest of this year and then all of next year. If you win 3 events in the same calendar year, you are promoted to the PGA Tour. So for example, if you had won 2 events previous to Wichita and just so happened to win Wichita, you are in the PGA Tour event next week. It's that immediate.
That's cool. That's awesome. I mean, that's, definitely shows just that, the attitude and the fearlessness that you were just talking about. Jay, I know you mentioned the defending champion is 4 under right now. Any other leaderboard updates before we let you go or anything that we need to be looking at as day number 1 of the Wichita Open rolls on?
Yeah, well, lots of low numbers. Jimmy Stanger, who is projected to finish 5th after this week on the points list, is our leader at 7 under par through 14 holes. Kyle Jones is a shot back at 6 under. Spencer Levine, who has played the PGA Tour for several years, is at 5 under, just 2 shots back. Clay Fegler is 5 under. There's an interesting young man. I'm trying to go through the leaderboard here. Michael Fiegels, who's at 3 under, so he's 4 shots back. He shot 59 earlier this year. So it just shows you talent on this tour because you don't see 59s every week, every year. I think there's just been maybe a little more than a handful of 59s on this tour in the 34-year history. So these guys can flat out play, no doubt.
Well, one more thing before we let you go real quick. I want you to give everybody an update on some of the local flavor in this tournament. We know that Cooper Schultz, who's a Crestview member and a local kid from Andover Central and K-State, he qualified, so he's in the field. Give everybody an idea on some of the local flavor in this tournament.
Yeah, so Cooper Schultz, he'll be entering his junior year at K-State. He teed off at just about 9 o'clock this morning. I think he's even par through his first 4 or 5 holes. Dodge Kimmer, who was a high school standout here in the Wichita area, played at Stanford. I think he's 2 under early in his round. So a couple of guys off to fairly decent starts, guys to watch. But they're going to have to make birdies. They're going to have to make them fast, and they're going to have to make a lot of them.
All right. Well, it's always a ton of fun. And of course, we are just beginning day number 1 of the Wichita Open out at Crestview Country Club. Jay, appreciate your time. Have a great first day, and we'll talk to you and check in again tomorrow on the updates on the leaderboard.
You got it. Looking forward to it. Hey, have a great day, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Jay Delling. He's going to be talking with us again tomorrow for day number 2 of the Wichita Open. And man, I would just encourage anybody listening, if you've got a couple of free hours to go out there, check out the Wichita Open. Everybody talks about the 17th green. It's a lot of fun, but it's not just that. I've loved just going and walking the course, following golfers, getting a chance to check out some of these young guys that are trying to make a charge and make it to the big time, the PGA Tour. So it's always a lot of fun. Day number 1 of the Wichita Open out at Crestview Country Club. We're going to take a break, come back. Our final full segment is on the way next. Tommy Castor, Paul Savage, and Jad Chambers producing. It's Sports Daily on KFH.
time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on a Thursday. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage here with you. The IHOP hotline, 869-1240. It's been a busy show today, Paul. Jam-packed.
Boy, it has.
A lot of different interviews. Tim Fitzgerald, Chelsea Messenger, Kim Carter, the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Jay Delling to talk Wichita Open.
Man.
If you missed any of that, you can go online, kfhradio.com or the free Odyssey app, and listen to all of those interviews back. And of course, as we talked about before, day number 1 of the U.S. Open is underway. The leaderboard really hasn't changed a whole lot since the last time we talked about it. The same 3 players, Morales, Solomon, and Wu, tied for the lead at 2 under right now. A couple of other notable players that are on the course that are under par: Kevin Streelman, Francesco Molinari, Shane Lowry, Ricky Fowler, Xander Schauffele, and John Rahm, all 1 under par. So, of course, very early in day number 1 of the U.S. Open, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're definitely in that season, Paul, where you've got U.S. Open golf, you've got Wichita Open golf. There's just a lot happening in that world.
Right. And I'm really looking forward to the U.S. Open and getting some TV time with that. I'm interested in this golf course. It's amazing to me that you would think that the PGA would come play some golf tournaments in Los Angeles. I mean, call me crazy,
Right.
but I mean, you would think. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some really nice golf courses in California, up and down the course. The coastline. We all understand that it's full of great golf courses. But LA, you would think, with the population base, they would come. So I think this is going to be a fascinating. I think this course is going to be scored on a little bit more than we think. I think it's going to take a higher score than normal to win this tournament. But anyway, I think it's going to be fascinating. I will be watching. I'm fascinated in the course. I want to see the course almost as much as the players, to be real truthful.
Yeah. I loved your question to Chelsea Messenger in the first hour about how the fact that this course is kind of unknown, if that plays into how you bet it or not, because a lot of these golfers have never played Los Angeles Country Club before. Sam Stevens, when we had him on last week, said that he had never played it. A lot of these players haven't. I know the PGA Tour, they do a little bit in the LA area. I think the Genesis Open is at Riviera, which is in the LA Metro. But I mean, this particular course, LA Country Club, is kind of an unknown. And, watching some videos from before the tournament started of, the ball dropping into the rough and it's just like disappears into the grass.
Right.
That's what makes the U.S. Open so much fun. I called it a battle of attrition yesterday.
Yes.
That's kind of what it is. So it's going to be fun to watch this tournament.
You're right.
The week goes on. Definitely locked into it for sure. We'll give you an update tomorrow on the show once we get through day number 1 of how things stand after 1 day of the U.S. Open out in L.A. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll tell you what's on the network as we get into a Thursday. We'll be right back. It's Sports Daily on KFH. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in and listening this morning. Thanks to our guests, Tim Fitzgerald, Chelsea Messenger, Kim Carter, our newest Wichita Sports Hall of Fame inductee, and Jay Delling talking Wichita Open. A busy Thursday on the show. Of course, you can go back and re-listen anytime at kfhradio.com. On the network today, Jim Rome follows us, Bob and Jeff at 2, Maggie and Perloff at 4, and Zach Gelb at 5. For Chad Chambers, for Paul Savage, I'm Tommy Castor. We will see you back here tomorrow for a Friday edition of Sports Daily. Have a great day.